I hope everyone is enjoying day 2 of the Montgomery Summit. There's still a lot of great programming to come, especially today's keynote. So without further ado, here is Jamie Montgomery, founder and managing director of March Capital Partners.
Thanks, Jackie. Well, good afternoon, and we're delighted to end on a very interesting and high note. But first, a few words of housekeeping. I want to thank all of you for joining us this year and for coming from around the world and around the country. We'll hope to see you next year this time. It's next year's leap year, so we're going to be, I think it's the 3rd and 4th, and or 4th and 5th, that same week, the Wednesday, Thursday next year, and of March. South by Southwest will be a week later. RSA will be a couple weeks earlier, so we have a clean shot at it. So no excuses. One of my longtime friends is Rich Karlgaard. Rich is going to do a fireside chat with Martin Schroeter. So first, a few words on Martin. Martin spent over 25 years at IBM in increasingly senior financial and executive management roles, including treasurer, general manager of their finance business, CFO, a number of operating roles, and most recently appointed senior vice president of IBM Global Markets, which is really about as senior as you can get at IBM. He has to do all the work, I think is what it's saying. But he's played an instrumental role in guiding IBM's strategic positioning back into being viewed as, wow, these guys are really, really good. They got their act together, and this Red Hat acquisition's pretty interesting, and their performance is good. The outlook's great. They're well positioned. They kind of bumped Google down a notch in terms of who's behind Amazon and Microsoft in the cloud, and it's like they're really, really relevant. And so I thought it was a good story. No one better to speak about than Martin Schroeter himself, who's a very high-profile leadership role at IBM, and then Rich is a great narrator and storyteller of what's going on in leadership in American technology. He's a best-selling author of Life 2.0 and The Soft Edge. His new book, Late Bloomers, is coming out in April. It's already a bestseller, which is great. I only bought half the copies that have been sold, but it is so come see me after April when it comes out. We got a copy just for you. But he's a longtime publisher of Forbes and the innovation editor. And he writes a regular column called Innovation Rules. And Rich, Martin, welcome to the stage. Great to have you here. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Jamie. No, you don't play one here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I remembered.
I was dyslexic on that.
All right. Anyway.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Jamie. A couple of weeks ago, I attended IBM's Think conference in San Francisco, and I was frankly blown away by what I perceived was this new IBM, an IBM that had a pop in its step, an IBM that was working with the outside world, an IBM of both leading technologies and leading partnerships, and you would have to say, in every way, it's not the IBM that many of us perceive, particularly, I think, those of us in Silicon Valley where I live, and those of us on the West Coast in general, where sometimes we think that only we on the West can do technology, and those old Eastern technology companies, well, look what happened to the mini-computer industry in a very short period of time in the early 1990s, and won't it be the same for some of these quote-unquote big iron companies? And if you'd been to Think, you would have seen something entirely different. So, Martin, I'd love to have you talk about the transformation, which may seem old hat to you because you've lived through it, but I think for people who attended Think and saw everything from quantum computing to Watson to your scalable servers to what you're doing in global markets came away pretty impressed.
Well, thank you for that. That's very nice of you to say, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Jamie, by the way. The way you describe my job it makes me tired already just thinking about it. So, look, I think that a big part, and we are 107, so yes, we're We're a technology company. By the way, we were in Silicon Valley long before Silicon Valley was in Silicon Valley.
The disk drive, 1956.
The Almaden Research Center has been there since the mid-'50s. Now, what we learned, by the way, going through this process is not just what you do, but how you do it. So as an example, yes, we've been in Almaden for a long, long time, but we've had to keep moving and creating new spaces in order to make sure everybody knows, where we are and how we got there. So the transformation in IBM, I think, I would start just by this really simple idea, because you talked a bit about some of the products, both that you've seen and maybe in our past. But I think what's really important to understand is that IBM as a firm has never defined itself by its products. It's just not the way we think. Yes, we have products. Obviously, we have offerings. But we've always defined ourselves by what we do for our clients. We've always lived at sort of this intersection of technology and business. And so, yes, we develop great technologies. We have more out today than we did maybe 5 years ago, right? So 5 years ago, as we were transforming the business, we didn't have the mass of security skills that we have today. We didn't have the mass of digital skills and design skills. So yes, we've spent a lot of time transforming that portfolio, and today we have leading-edge positions in product areas like blockchain, like quantum. But for us, it's always about what can those do for our clients? And so we bring not only those great technologies, we bring in a set of experts who understand the industry, who understand workflows, who understand our clients' processes, so that we can put those technologies to work for them. So again, IBM has always been that company, the company that takes great technology. Sometimes we build it, and we've gotten better at partnering, I think, over the last few decades. We take technology and we put it to work to change the way the world works.
Nevertheless, I think in hearing you, you're almost underestimating how maybe the world once perceived you and what's going on right now. Particularly, I want to talk about partnerships. You recently acquired Red Hat. When I was preparing for an interview with Tom Rosamilia, who runs the IBM Global System, which is the hardware part of IBM, I discovered that IBM once again has assumed leadership in the world for the most powerful supercomputer, but it's not your father's supercomputer. It's actually 4,800 servers lashed together running in parallel, and those servers are using not IBM chips primarily, but NVIDIA GPUs. So both in the scalability and in terms of working with companies like Red Hat and in hardware with NVIDIA, it's a different game. So when did that kind of transformation from being a highly vertically integrated company to much more of a company that is more of an ecology rather than a company with boundaries?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And while I'm not the architect who designed that system, I like to think that it's an IBM processor with NVIDIA helping a bit, but that's okay. Look, I'd say a few things. We have always had a big ecosystem, but the ecosystem that some of our competitors are building, they're growing as well. So having a big ecosystem, which we do around a lot of our offerings, a lot of our software products, is important. But you have to keep that ecosystem growing. What we've learned as an organization, I think, again, I mentioned a little bit. It's not just the what we do it, but the how we do it. The evolution and the transformation of how we engage, of how we partner, has had to change, to your point, quite a bit. So if I go way, way back, not before my time even, if I go back 40 years ago, I would have characterized IBM as if we didn't invent it, it wasn't a good idea. That's what I would have said about 40, 45
Yeah, I
years
think
ago.
not invented here was actually,
not
people were
here.
thinking of IBM when that phrase came.
So I think, that was a long, long time ago. We as the world evolved then, and Lou Gerstner came to run IBM. He made a big purchase. He bought Lotus Corporation. And so we learned that there is obviously a lot of innovation happening. There is a way to get the innovation and to bring it to your clients. A lot of that was about owning an asset, right? So we bought a ton of software companies. I think I spent 13 years now on the deal committee. I ran the deal committee when I was CFO for 4 years. And I think over my tenure, over that 13 years, I think we bought 160 companies or something. So we bought a lot of companies. But over the last few years, I think what we've spent more time doing is, to your point, the ecosystem. How do we work with all of these great technologies? There's not a need for us to own all of these things. Our clients are not asking us to own it. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense for us to own it from our investors, but our clients are asking us to bring the best of technology, put it together, help us put it together, and yes, we know you have some, but we really want your expertise on how these things work. So that's why we have partners like Apple and Salesforce and others who we work with. We embed our technologies into their technologies, and sometimes we bring their solutions into our clients. So we've had to build out an ecosystem. Our competitors are building ecosystems, but I do believe that we have evolved to a much, much more effective, friendly, and partner that companies, large and small, can work with.
Well, describe the early partnership with Red Hat and then how it led to the acquisition.
Yeah, Red Hat is, well, I'm not sure that the partnership led to the acquisition, but look, the partnership, Red Hat plays such a unique role in the world, right? It is like the Switzerland of the operating system world. And our clients recognize that. Red Hat last year, well, Linux last year became the biggest operating system in the cloud in an enterprise, and Red Hat within that is now the largest, obviously within Linux. So the demand for open, the demand for Red Hat continues to grow quite well. What our clients were looking at was a world where they believe, as we do, that everyone's going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clouds on which they run their business. They probably already do today, right? You use Salesforce and Workday, use the IBM cloud, you have something on AWS, boom, you already have 4 clouds. You may even have one of your own, right? So 5 clouds. So in that world, what our clients were telling us was, we like having access to all these clouds. We need your help to help us manage it across it. So it's a multi-cloud world, and we need your help to manage it. It's a hybrid world because it's not going to be just everything's not going to go to a cloud. We're going to have a lot of things in our own cloud, or even some things still on-prem. But importantly, we don't want to give up open, which they see as a future as we put things on clouds. And clouds were being developed with more and more and more proprietary stacks on top of them. So if you wanted to get to the functionality that was really going to help your business, if you wanted to get to the AI functionality or the machine learning functionality, increasingly those were in proprietary kinds of environments. And so our clients said, we see the world the way you do. It's a multi-cloud world, so we need help managing that, but we need portability and we need open. And you, IBM, have to play a big role in that. So we viewed Red Hat as, and we'll keep them as their thing because they are Switzerland, but we view this as an opportunity to build out that hybrid multi-cloud world for our clients, where we can ensure interoperability, we can ensure open, and we can ensure that they don't get locked into something, which is really, again, what they've been asking.
Yeah, well, speaking of lock-in, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal, I think within the last week, and Capital One, the bank, decided to go all cloud with a certain Seattle cloud supplier. And lo and behold, its prices went up 20% year over year. And a word that I hadn't heard in software for some years, lock-in, and the fear of lock-in started to appear. Let's talk about, I think the perception again in Silicon Valley and Seattle and on the West Coast, newer kinds of technology companies, if there's going to be a day, I don't know, 3 years, 6 months, and 22 days from now when a flip is switched and it's going to be all cloud, the whole world is going to run on a cloud. And yet, when you look at enterprise computing today, cloud is only somewhere between a 15 and 20% share, and data centers are still the vast majority. So your view certainly that it's going to be a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud world is probably more realistic. But why do you think, where does this perception that everybody's going to go all cloud all the time come from?
Yeah, well, look, I think cloud, other than the economics, which I think for certain kinds of workloads, for certain scale, the economics are obvious as well. But if I just take out the economics for a second, the advantages of having a cloud, whether it's a public cloud or a private cloud, the advantages of having a cloud far, far beyond the economics. In fact, most of our clients say, we want you to build us a cloud because we want to build all our applications, we want to modernize them all, we want to put them into a cloud environment because we need the agility that comes with cloud, right? If you just simplify it all down to how do I deliver function into a software environment, then you do that much, much more agilely with a cloud environment. So our clients say, look...
Something IBM called utility computing 20 years ago, I remember.
You know, in some ways, it is a little bit of back to the future, right, for this, because the world used to run, the banking world used to run on, it still does run on mainframes, but the banking world used to run on daily batch updates, right, and all those data centers would do all the work, and you'd get you get the answer on the screen again, right, the next morning. Well, the cloud world is not that, obviously. It's real time. You deliver function, and I mean, it's powerful and agile. But our clients want to sometimes build those environments themselves. They're happy to move workloads sometimes into public clouds. It's not that multi-cloud is important not because a CIO is going to wake up every morning and decide what's the cheapest place to run a workload that day. That's not what multi-cloud is going to do. But I do need to know that if I build an application to help run my bank, if I build that application and I modernize it, right, and I wrap the APIs around it so that I can get to that function, that I can move that stack and I can get to that stack from anywhere, and I've got the same security protocols and I've got the same stack structure around it. So in this multi-cloud world, again, it's not just about economics. There are a piece of economics here, but with now the cloud war has been going on, I don't know, since 06, 07, right, when AWS came out in 06. And as you said, there's probably fewer than 20% of workloads have actually shifted. That'll keep growing, but we're only up to maybe the first something less than 20%. The next step now is taking the mission-critical things, figuring out how do you modernize those apps, and figuring out, and every consultant who looks at it, our clients tell us the same, we're going to modernize all the apps, but that doesn't mean they're all going to wind up in a cloud, in a public cloud. A lot of them are going to wind up sitting in hybrid, in private clouds. If for no other reason, then you live in a regulated industry, and in a regulated industry, as an example, if you're a bank, you need to know where your data is all the time. You need to be able to answer a question from a regulator, and so regulated industries have sort of unique features in and of themselves, and then many of our clients have the scale so that they can keep everything in a private cloud and still get the functionality. So yes, it's a multi-cloud world. Yes, it's a hybrid world. I don't think in my lifetime we're going to wake up and everything's going to be on a public cloud. It's not logical for the workloads it's doing.
In your new position, working with some of the major multinationals around the world, everybody is using in one way or another the term digital transformation. I think John Chambers talked about it yesterday, 40% failure rate among companies in 10 years. If you're to talk about all companies, including startups, exhausted fourth-generation family companies, all companies, 40% failure rate in 10 years would be nothing. It'd be normal. It might even be an underestimate. But to apply that to large multinationals is quite a different thing. And driven by this accelerating technology and the need to do a profound digital transformation, or simply be one of those companies that's incapable of evolving at the pace that's needed to survive and thrive today. What can you tell us about the state of digital transformation by industry? I mean, what are some of the lessons learned there?
You know, it's in every CEO I've talked to. It doesn't matter if they're running an airline or if they're manufacturing corrugated cardboard boxes. Every CEO believes that they are a technology company now. It's a recognition of the importance of digital. It's a recognition of the importance of their data. It's really built around their data.
Well, they say that, but I see too many companies that stick IT in the audit committee. You know,
so
I mean, right away that kind of signals something, doesn't it?
Well, again, I think that if you view yourself as a technology company, then you start to get your head around, okay, how do I take my data, which is incredible insights if I can figure out how to get a hold of them. How do I take my data and make sure I don't get disrupted, because there is somebody almost guaranteed, given the pools of capital that can form today, there's somebody out there thinking about how to get to my client better than me. Right, so in this, when the shorthanded word is digital transformation, digital disruption, but it really is about having an organization that can get a hold of its data, can apply some algorithms to it to get some insights, and then can act on it. Excuse me. It also means a lot of how you do the work is changing. So you asked a little bit about industry. So if we just look at banking, there's a bank, excuse me, banks in France, banks in Brazil. They take our AI technology. They use the function they need to create a chatbot, and they interact now with their clients through a chatbot, so that they can get, you know, the accuracy is higher than humans. The ability to have better grasp of all the choices is better than just having a human. So now, you know, sometimes they do it with a chatbot by itself, and sometimes they do a chatbot with a person, right, as sort of the support function. So they're using it for chatbots because it can, you know, the corpus of data that AI can handle is far greater than what any individual could do. In industries like energy, even ExxonMobil is using our AI and our digital skills and our design skills to help improve the experience for the drivers at the petrol pump, right? So now Exxon, you know, we think of them obviously as a big sort of refining business, but they have to worry about who is reaching and who is getting their customers, and they want to learn about that pool. So they use our AI to help the experience all the way at the end.
And who is driving this change? Is it when you see effective implementations of sweeping digital technology throughout every part of the company, is that being driven out of IT, or is it really, are we seeing something new where the CEO is driving it today?
It's actually in quite a few places. So my experience, my observation is that the CEO needs a strong technology vision. When we do our surveys, which we do every year, we do a CEO survey, we do a C-suite survey. 4 or so years ago, when we asked them what are the trends that are going to affect your business the most over the next 4 or 5 years. 4 years ago, I'm doing it from memory. I think about 4 years ago, technology hit #1 in the CEO's office. Before that, it was macro, regulatory. You know, pick from the handful that you can imagine. But technology hit #1. It took 2 years for the rest of the C-suite to catch up to that. So now the CFOs, now the CHRO, now the CMOs also say technology is #1, but they were behind their bosses, essentially. The implementation of this, because of, for us, because of the way we reach our clients, yes, we have big CIO relationships, but we have a lot of relationships with CHROs and CMOs and CFOs because we can deliver to them and give them an opportunity to sort of consume the technology without having to do it through the CIO's office. So I think the CIO still has the mantle of innovation sitting, you know, squarely on their shoulders. The CEO clearly has to have a vision, but each of those line leaders, each of those functional leaders can now go drive innovation within their own enterprises because they have our tools and they have access to that. The other thing I'd say, the big changes in how we work is that, you know, today it's all about building with our clients. So we send teams in because the CFO's office or the CIO's office needs not only to have a solution, but they need a workforce that can, you know, that's going to be relevant, and they need a workforce that can help manage that 2, 3, 4 years down the road. You can't just deliver something and hope it's going to stay fresh forever. It is not. It is not. So we build it with them so that we can transfer those skills to their teams, and then they can take it from there, if you will.
Well, since you bring up something really interesting, in many organizations, maybe these are the very organizations that are behind the curve, but IT reports to the CFO, and that's why it's in the audit committee at the board level, kind of, with all the risk of IT being kind of seen not for all of its capabilities, but as a cost. But as a former CFO yourself, I would imagine that makes you a pretty effective weapon out on a high-level sales call that you can talk about what the CFO really needs to think about today, that they need to be really on board with this digital transformation and not constantly looking for the cheapest way out.
No, very much. I mean, I do spend a lot of time with, obviously, with all of our clients. We spend a lot of time with CFOs, and yes, we have it's not like there's a club or anything. I don't want you to think that, but CFOs do understand, the pressures and the way that what they're being asked to, the mandate they're being asked to fill. But I got to tell you, we get just as much time with the CHRO, given the way we've transformed the way we run internally using AI. So, we spread the use of AI through the organization. We use it in the CFO's office, we use it in the CHRO's office, we use it in the CMO. So we use it quite broadly, and then that does become the discussion point that our clients want to have. Again, it's not dissimilar to that prior theme, which is they want to build with it. So they want to know, how did you do it? How can we do it as well?
I want to talk about two of your glamour projects at IBM, your quantum computing and Watson. A cynic might say that these are really good PR angles, but what's really going on there with all this talk about quantum? Is it real? Is it like cold fusion, that it's going to be around the corner 2 years from now? And Watson makes compelling ads and all of that, but what is it really all about? You put a lot of money behind both of those projects, and tell us what they're all about. They do provide good PR, but what's the real story?
Yeah, well, look, let's stick with quantum, right? Because that's kind of what's next, right? That's a little bit further out. And it's not cold fusion, but it is really, really cold, right? It does, for those of us who remember science class, and if you remember the Kelvin scale, quantum computer works at less than 1 Kelvin, so 40 times colder than outer space, basically. That's pretty cold. So you're not going to have one in your house. Probably. I don't know you. I've only known you for a little while, but I don't think you'll have one in your house. Look, quantum is here, and it's here today. We've built a quantum network where our clients are using it today. There's a long way to go to make it, to put it into an enterprise kind of a system, because you have to build operating systems and compilers and development environment. All that's still all in front of us. But from a working quantum computer, you can use the IBM quantum system today. You can get to it through a cloud. You can run experiments. They've run hundreds of thousands of experiments already, our clients. It's being used today by ExxonMobil's using it. I mentioned them earlier on a different point, but they're using it to simulate chemistry, because it's so much cheaper to simulate chemistry than it is to actually try to do it, right? To have to do it. And the way a quantum computer works, it's got much more power than anything that exists today. So you can essentially do things you couldn't even do. You couldn't do before. So companies like Exxon are using it to experiment in chemistry. Companies like JP Morgan are using it for risk management, because again, given the way it works, it is so adept at probability analysis, if you will, right? If I kind of take it down to a very functional level, they are using it to help them understand, in a big complex trading book, they're using it to help them understand all the different scenarios that can take place and how do you manage risk. A lot of time is being spent on encryption and decryption. And the reason is because, as we've said before, at some point, we're up to 20 now, 20 qubits. We'll be at 50 soon. At some point, the quantum computer will decrypt every bit of encryption that exists on the planet today in about a nanosecond. Quantum computing has that capability. Now that's in front of us. It's still out a bit, but the reason people are working on it today is because today we rely so heavily on encryption to keep our data safe. Well, if the bad people steal your data today, And if they can decrypt it in 2 or 3 or 4 years, if they think they can get to it in 2 or 3, they're going to keep it today. So we have to spend a lot of time on encryption because we don't not only have to encrypt against what's coming, but we have to make sure that the data today is safe enough so that the bad guys can't go decrypt history like they can decrypt the present maybe. So again, a lot of applications on quantum. It is still all in front of us, but we have the only system that's out that you can actually use. I couldn't use it because it's not my skill set, but it is out there for those. I bet there's somebody in this crowd, at least one, who could do it. So that's quantum. On Watson. Yeah, probably this table here.
Yeah.
Like they could. On Watson, look, Watson is a set of technologies that we've taken and we've kind of deconstructed them and made them available as sort of the functional pieces, so that our clients can put them together in ways to solve problems. I mentioned earlier, chatbots, for instance. That's a group of functions. We do a lot in the healthcare space to help doctors understand and diagnose healthcare issues so they can figure out a course of treatment. So Watson runs through that. We use Watson heavily in our security business because increasingly security is not about a bad person or a group of bad people trying to get into your systems. Increasingly, it's about the algorithms that the bad people write. So it's machine versus machine. And you need Watson to be able to you need technologies like Watson to be able to figure all that out, because there's no way we can keep up. In machine versus machine battle, you have to be ahead of a machine. It's a different kind of a world, a different kind of a fight. So Watson, quantum is here today, but most of the future is in front of us. Watson is here and being deployed heavily across our business, across our portfolio, and heavily into many of our partners as well. So Salesforce uses Watson within its products. And others as well. So they're both here.
Let's move to a different topic that has both business application, particularly enterprise business application, and societal consequences, and that's the whole issue of trust in the digital age. And we're certainly experiencing here in early 2019, and it's been going on for the past year or so, a mounting backlash against technology, primarily directed toward consumer companies, social media companies. You know who they are. But it seems like the only effective way to counter this is to really have an unimpeachable reputation for trust. How does IBM look at the issue of trust in the digital age? What does it mean for enterprise computing in your client base, and what do you think it means for society's acceptance of this forward march into the age of AI?
Yeah, boy, that's a good thing we only have another hour and a half to cover this topic. So, look, there's a lot there. First of all, at the core of this, the data, and then we'll come to AI in a second. We'll layer that on top. At the layer of data, there are a lot of really important questions that I think we're all sort of grappling with, including, in the who owns the data, and who owns the insights from the data, and who benefits from the insights from the data, and where should the data be stored? And I mean, there are a lot of questions around the use of data. So for us, it is very much about trust. It is very much about how do we convince our clients and how do we convince the world that their data will be safe, it won't be misused, they'll continue to own it, and they'll continue to own the insights from it. And so we were the first to put out a set of principles around the use of data. And those principles cover very clearly this idea that, first of all, your data is your data. We don't, it's not as a condition of doing business with us, you don't have to give us your data. We don't make you give it to us, and we also give you your insights. Your insights don't go to help us do something else with them, right? We don't have a business model that requires us to take all the data and all the insights of what you've learned about your clients and use it someplace else. So principle one was really around this consistency of our business model and our approach to data and ownership that our clients makes our clients feel quite comfortable. The second is that when you start to get now into AI, you start to get into this topic of what is it being used for, and how how transparent is it? And so we have been clear with our clients, all of our AI comes with sort of a, think about the nutrition guidelines that sit on the package of food. And for our AI, we talk about who's trained it, and because it's important. If you're reading a restaurant review, you probably don't need to know the person who wrote it. You can read a bunch, and it's probably not going to have too profound an impact. If, however, you're going to a doctor who's using Watson and you want to know, who's trained the data, well, who's trained the system, we make sure everyone knows. So who's trained it it becomes really important, and just as important, particularly in enterprise, is the idea that you have to be able to sort of trace your AI and understand what did it know when it made that recommendation, right? If you want to start to get bias out of AI, you have to understand what the system knew. And so we build into our AI, because our clients need it in an enterprise context, we build into our AI this auditability feature so that you can backtrack and understand what did it know when it made a decision, and how did it reach that decision. So this is again a big complex topic, but the idea of data and protecting data and making sure that our clients know our views on it was very important to us. And the idea of how the AI was built and who trained it, and some insights and some transparency around the content of the AI, very, very important for us as well. And if we don't, we collectively, not just we, IBM, if we don't collectively figure this out, then we'll miss an opportunity, because people won't trust us, governments won't trust us, and then we'll get to a set of regulations that either limits our ability to use these terrific technologies to solve some real problems, or we'll start to get sort of some strange policies, some strange regulatory frameworks around data itself.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a question about digital trade, which I know you have strong opinions about. But as you were talking about data, John Chambers said something really interesting yesterday. He was talking about mistakes that he had made. And he shared that the biggest mistake that he made when he was CEO of Cisco was to underestimate the severity of the technology downturn that was foreshadowed by tech stocks peaking in March 2000, but really hit Cisco with full force not until the fourth quarter. Even though the stock markets were screaming that technology was oversold, the order book, the data that Cisco relied on, showed a pretty smooth path. And so then finally, when reality hit, it hit with an abrupt force, and suddenly he's down, instead of being up over the prior year by 40%, he's down 30%. And he said, he trusted the data. Well, he trusted a limited data set. And I guess the question is that we're all moving toward this analytics world and AI world. How much room is there for sort of executive gut feel? John, the reason John said this is his worst mistake is that he kind of knew that if he had been listening closely and had been paying attention to banks and the stock market, and that he would have taken a different action. He would have gotten more defensive sooner, but he didn't. So sometimes you can have too much of the wrong data, I guess, but how much does sort of executive experience and wisdom and even a gut feel matter in a data age?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I'd say it is, we've been making decisions with data for decades. It's not like all of a sudden we're just using data now to make decisions. Big data is a little bit different, but in the enterprise space, IBM, I'm sure every company has been using data to make decisions. One of the approaches, our belief, and one of the approaches that we feel very strongly about is that AI really is not there to replace the human, it's there to supplement the human. It's this man and machine in working together that is going to make the world work differently and work better. So our AI is built to supplement the wisdom, the experience, the insight, the morality, and the morals of humans. It's not there to replace them, and all of a sudden everything just works on a machine. That's not at all how we think about it, and it's not why we build the systems we build. We build the systems we build in healthcare to supplement what doctors do. We build the systems that we build in and around security and in and around blockchain to help the people understand what's going on, so they can run their business, manage their business, and understand the data. But there is plenty of, I mean, this isn't about machines are now just going to be the only things that have a job, and you and I are going to watch them work all day. This is about how do you take the technologies and supplement what's happening.
Well, let's move to the subject of digital trade in the context of trade in general. Certainly this administration, President Trump seems to have sitting on one shoulder are trade hawks like Peter Navarro and Robert Lighthizer, and then on the other shoulder are people like Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, his chief economic advisor Gary Cohn before that. Trump's instincts seem to compel him toward a zero-sum view of the world on trade, but he also knows that any re-election hopes ride on a strong economy and a strong markets, which trade restrictions can kill. How does IBM get a voice in that debate? And then particularly, what exactly do you mean by digital trade?
Yeah, it's, boy, this is a big, important topic. It's not just for us. It's a big, important topic, I think, for everybody in the room who's in, digital space and data. So first, most of the dialogue that you read about, most of the dialogue in the press has been around the things we can see and touch, soybeans and iPhones and cars. And that's part of the story, but it really is not most of the story of what's going to happen in the future. The digital economy, the digital trade economy is growing 4 times faster than traded goods are. The digital economy is creating jobs much faster than the rest of it, the non-digital world. And so when we think about digital trade, it's not just the click of the mouse if you're buying something online. That's not sort of the entirety of digital trade. Digital trade is all the data that moves around the planet in order to make the supply chains of the world work, in order to make the banking systems of the world work, in order to make the reservation systems of the world work. We manage and process 87% of the world's credit card transactions. We run 9 of the 10 biggest retailers. We run the banking system. So we see the importance of digital flow, and if we don't do this right, and this is why it's such an important topic, all of that will come to a grinding halt, and we're starting to see it hit the agenda of certain things, but we're also seeing some examples where some of the countries are going kind of in a wrong direction. So we're very active in this discussion, very active on supporting things like TPP. Now, TPP, which was written already a few years ago, has some very good provisions on digital trade. It says data can flow freely unless there's a specific reason why it can't. National security, personal information. So data can flow freely has to be a part of this, and TPP has that. The idea of data localization mandates, which some countries are now toying with, like if you want to do business here, you have to leave all of that data has to be stored here. They're misguided because the bad guys, they don't look at the lines on the map to decide where they want to go after data. They really don't care that much. So this idea that if I keep my data in this country, then I can protect it is a false sense of security. And we believe that our clients get to decide where the data is going to reside. So you can't have a country that says if you want to do business here, you have to keep all your data here. And then finally, and this is really important, this idea that if you want to do business in a certain country, you have to give up your source code. I mean, source code today in a software world are the designs of the last century, right? And those designs were always protected and made to recognized for the importance they were. So, for IBM, we've never given up our source code. We wouldn't do it. Right? We've never given up our source code, and importantly now, because of the development of the software world, there are elements around, well, you have to give up your algorithms as well. So all 3 of those, you need data to flow freely, you can't have data localization mandates, and you can't be forced to give up your source code or your algorithms as a condition of doing business. That's what we're trying to align this digital trade agenda around. I would say that that, again, TPP, as I mentioned, has very strong provisions. They don't have the algorithm provision, but it was written sort of before that was kind of a big thing. So that's quite good. The USMCA has very strong provisions on all of these, including algorithms. It's very forward-thinking, but it's not the law yet, right? So if you're, by the way, if you want to call your congressperson, when USMCA hits the floor, I would suggest you weigh in and that you want to get USMCA done, because this is a big part of
the former NAFTA.
Digital trade, the former NAFTA. Now, here's the problem with all of these. TPP is, only a few countries. USMCA is us and Mexico, us and Canada. So it's not a global approach to this, right? We need a true global approach to the management of digital trade.
How do you, I wanted to touch on a last topic and not get you into the political thickets where you probably don't want to go anyway. But you mentioned that there's been a sea change at the CEO level on technology that started occurring, you noticed, about 4 years ago, and then swept into the C-suite. In almost any given year, another topic that will be high on that list is workforce development. I mean, not everybody can be score 800 on their math SAT and go to MIT and Stanford Engineering School, although I realize half the people in the room probably did. But if you're going to hire those people, you have to pay for them, and most people can't pay for those. Most industries can't pay Silicon Valley and Wall Street salaries. So how do we move forward into this? Where's this workforce going to come from? And I invite you to talk about what I think what you're doing with your P-Tech project is really, Mike Milken likes to talk about social science, really tells us is a great predictor of where we're going to go. This is a great social good that you're doing, as well as a bottom line good.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, we believe that AI is, yes, it's going to change the world works, but importantly, it's going to change every job. It's going to change the way every job does, not just the PhD's jobs, but every job. I mean, my time with clients now, for instance, we're working with a port operator so that they can embed AI into the way they help the ships navigate, right? So for the last hundreds of years, obviously not the employees, but for the employee's career today, an employee's been the port master, the harbor master has been looking at 50 different data points, and when we embed AI now, we're going to have to go completely change and retrain that person in order to operate in a new world. The new people coming through and into that industry are going to have to learn a completely different job from what it was. So every industry, every job is going to change because of AI. We, the society, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that. So we've taken and we put together a few things to try to help that. First, and it starts from this idea that, again, we'll hire every security expert we can find. We'll hire as many of the PhDs you noted that we can afford. We'll hire all those people. They'll always have jobs. Where we're missing the digital skills are in the kind of the rest of those jobs. So we've created a program, you mentioned it, called P-Tech, Pathways to Technology, and think of it as like a 6-year high school. We've designed the curriculum. We started in Brooklyn, New York. Now we're in 5 different countries. We have 550 corporate partners working with us. We're getting thousands and thousands of kids through here. But it's essentially, like I said, it's a 6-year high school. When you finish, you have obviously your high school degree, but you get an associate's degree. But you have the digital skills that we need, that we'll hire. So we'll hire.
And these are kids from mainly poorer communities, right?
We started in some of the most struggling communities because that's where the demand is for these, right? So it's a very exciting program. We'll get tens of thousands of kids through this. We'll hire a bunch. Our partners will hire some as well. So it works really well. So that's some scale, but that's not enough for everybody. I just want to mention 2 other things that we're doing. So one is our clients in Africa have this digital skills problem much larger than they do even in the U.S. The digital skills gap in Africa is what's preventing a lot of our clients from investing, from growing, because they just can't get them. So we created a platform called Digital Nation Africa. It's online, all online, delivers education, delivers content. They learn how to write web pages. They learn how to do design. And this will touch, that program in the next few years will touch 25 million kids across Africa. That's scale. And then one of the other challenges we have is we're losing, not we only IBM, we the industry, we're losing a lot of really, really good talent when people go start families, right? And so sometimes we can get them to come back, sometimes we can't. And we know that returning is really stressful, it's really hard, and the probability that they would come back, a woman would come back after having been out of the workforce, it's intimidating, and we had a kind of a so-so hit rate. So in addition to internships and creating new skills and retraining the workforce, we created a program called a returnship program. So women who want to come back to IBM, we pair them with a mentor. We give them a project to work on for 6 months. We stay very close, very connected to them, so we can get them back into the kinds of roles that their skills will suit. And we've had tremendous success, and now the incidence of them staying, the likelihood they stay is far, far higher. So again, there are big pools. There are a pool of people who have to be retrained. We need scale for that. We spend a lot of money on that. I'm sure a lot of companies in the room spend a lot of money on that, and we have to increase that pool by doing things like a returnship program. And then we got to get this next generation of workers ready for a digital world, and that means programs like P-Tech and Digital Nation Africa, where there is real scale.
Well, Martin Schroeter, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you very much.